Howdy, folks. Good evening. Welcome to Here's the Deal. I'm Shiloh. I'm your host for tonight. And so tonight we have a show called the Pipeline Special. We're going to have a regular guest, Mr. Marvin Lepp, is going to be with us. We're going to visit with him about all things having to deal with the Summit pipeline, the CO2 pipeline that they're proposing going through Bismarck. So with that, I'm going to bring Marvin on. Hey, Marvin, how are you?
Good. How are you doing, Shiloh?
Doing good. Trying not to melt in all this heat, huh? We go from winter to right into the middle of summer.
Well, 2 seasons in North Dakota, winter and road construction.
True enough. True enough. Yeah, it was 90 degrees here yesterday. It was stellar 86 degrees here today. It's supposed to be quite hot up and through all this week, so it'll be interesting to see how long this lasts. If it's going to be like this in the beginning of June, I can't wait for the middle of July, right?
Right. At least it's not a couple of years ago where we did 100 or 40 days above 100.
Yeah.
Was that 2021?
Somewhere in there. Yeah. Well, never worry. There's always tomorrow. It'll probably snow, right?
Right. I think Mount St. Menards has finally melted here in town.
Mount St. Menards. Oh, the big pile.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There might be a little bit left, but I'm pretty sure it's gone.
Oh, the guys from the Guns in 701, they're always keeping track of that. I was laughing. They're like, how did Jamie put it? Something like he thought he was at a mountain. If you thought he was at a mountain, but actually then they took the camera and went up and it was that snow pile there in Menards.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny. I think they took a poll on what day it was actually going to be gone.
I think people were actually betting on it.
Yeah. That's funny. So, well, you want to hop right into it about this? We had Jeff Magrum on a couple of weeks ago, just before the press conference that they had at the Capitol, and I'll be honest with you, Marvin, I haven't really followed this pipeline as much as maybe I should have. I'm going to let you kind of say your piece, and there's a few things that I find interesting and rather scary. You and I have already talked about it kind of off camera.
Yep.
On what my concerns were, but I'm going to let you kind of take over here and inform us on what we really need to know, and maybe give us some comments on what we need to do as far as combating this and what we can do and where to go from there. So,
well, I guess I've been pretty quiet on the pipeline thing, just because there's been so many other things I've been working on, but it's not that I don't care about it.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when it's rolling through the neighborhood that I grew up in. The route by Bismarck literally cuts across the ranch that my family helped run for almost 2 decades. So it's frustrating and it's scary, and the fact that it's so close to Bismarck should terrify everybody that lives here. I guess the thing for me personally is what it's affecting along the line. The school that I went to, not in school, is like a mile away from this pipe, where this pipe is running. It's one of the oldest schools in the state. It was built in 1886, and it's up until a couple of years ago, it was a functioning one room until they got enough students where they could expand. So, this is kind of a save the Wolverines from Red Dawn, because Naughton is the Wolverines, if you ask me.
Yeah.
But I guess my rant stems from Friday. I did go speak at the Public Service Commission meeting here in Bismarck. I spoke my piece about it. I also brought forward a file that got presented to Sherry Hoffert Hogan, who's our PCS, is on the PCS. And what that was, it was from 2021. It was related to White House Executive Order 14008. and it was put forward by the Department of Environmental Justice, as I think is what it was. But in this document, it's straight up like page 59 of it. Line 2 of the line was under things not good for a community. Number 2 was carbon capture. So our president was advised carbon capture was not good for the environment. And on top of that, number 5 was carbon capture markets. Number 14 was pipelines. Like, and say your piece about what you want with pipelines. Like, I'm not a fan of anything that sits and plunders the resources of my state, ships it to someplace else that the people of North Dakota aren't the first ones to benefit.
Yeah.
Honestly speaking, we should have a in-state refinery of our own where all this stuff goes to first, and our excess can get sold to other states. But that's not the way it goes. But yeah, number 2, carbon capture storage or carbon capture utilization and storage. Number 5, I'm reading it right now. Oh, wait, it wasn't number 5. Number 6, the establishment of advancement of carbon markets, including cap and trade. And then number 14 was pipeline creation, expansion, and maintenance. But the thing is like these guys don't care. They're going to try and use eminent domain, which is for setting up utility, not waste storage. And that's what we're doing, is we're storing other states' wastes. And it's something that I called them out for too. I'm like, we're literally taking and ripping all of our natural resources out of the ground to send across the country, whether it's coal, whether it's oil, whether it's hydropower that's coming off the dam, whether it's this stupid windmills. And it gets shipped out of state. But now we're going to be looking at pumping in carbon from across the state, ramming it underneath the ground through pipelines that are barely far enough underneath the soil that if something would happen, people don't have time to react. Like a proper respirator is what, $6,000? I don't know about you. I don't have 18 grand sitting around for my family to get these masks if there would be a break. And the worst part about this route, and this is from somebody that worked the land, that path is all on shifting clay. That ground moves. But they're not going to take that into account either. You know, they're just surveying their route. They're going to lay that pipe regardless, and they're not going to dig down another 2 feet and find out what's underneath it.
Yeah. There's a lot of things that, in my opinion, from what I've seen, and again, I've been focusing on different issues as well. I haven't paid attention as much as this one as probably I should. Not just that, but let's talk about the land rights, and with this coming out that other countries are Summit's, what do you call it? What's the word I'm looking for? They're basically the money. They're the investors. So can you go into a little bit about that, about what happens with those easements then? How does the ownership
Well, it turns
change?
into a 3-ring circus is what it does. Because the legislators passed laws saying that you can't, if you're a foreign country, you can't own land in North Dakota. Well, these easements become owned by this utility. Well, it's not a utility. Let's not call it that. This dumping company. They have foreign investors. I mean, it's Fufeng 2.0.
Yeah.
The Secretary of State at this point, if it is true that that's their investments, should revoke any sort of business license.
So does anybody know after excuse me, after the press conference, where is Drew Wigley on this? I mean, what are his feelings?
I don't even know. So I don't know if he's in a hurry up and wait mode, because right now, technically, he doesn't have to act because it hasn't happened. But you look at what's going on in the other states where they've been shooting this stuff down. I think they're just waiting for the weakest link to cave, because once one state caves into this pipeline, South Dakota, Minnesota, us, then they're going to pressure the other two to go forward. So, I mean, it's really ridiculous. And I mean, something that landowners should look into. And I don't know much about this, so don't take this as gospel. I haven't had enough time to sit and look through it, but I've heard land patents can stop the process too. But that's a lengthy process to do. But like Dr. Warford, the land he owns, I think he's only the second owner on it. It's the Solberg brothers are the ones that owned it before him. The butte that he talked about at the PCS meeting is actually called Solberg Buttes. So I'm pretty sure, like, their family is the ones that set up the farm, and when he bought out the ranch, like, pretty sure he has a good chance at doing a land patent. It's not something that's been traded 16 times along the way. I'm going to step outside for a second. The dogs are about to go off.
Oh.
But, I mean, our legislative assembly had plenty of time to stop the pipeline, too. So, 3822 is the chapter for carbon capture in our Century Code.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they were busy deleting plenty of other Century Codes. They could have just 86 that chapter, and then we wouldn't be having this discussion. What they did do, though, and once the House calms down again, they did pass a bill that changed how notifications for public meetings would go out, and they made it a lot worse, to be honest. A lot less work involved. So,
for who? For them?
Oh yeah, a lot less work involved for them. So now, like I said, when I get back inside, I'll go over it. Well, yeah, and I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, everybody, whether you think you're involved or not, you need to be saying something. Hi, honey. Can you say hi? Okay, you can say hi. Really, say hi.
Hi.
All right.
Landry has to sneak in every once in a while too, so I know how it is.
From church school and gymnastics.
Oh yeah.
It was originally in 1062, House Bill 1062, but Senate Bill 2057, what it did, so this is the way it reads now. Hearing notices required by this section must be completed by mail or third-party commercial delivery tracking services requested, and the addresses to the last address of record for the individual or entity to be served. The notice must be the notice by publication set forth in subsection 2 applies to all individuals and entities and cannot be served underneath this section. They originally had a service of hearing was to conform to personal service provisions in Rule 4 of North Dakota Rules of Civil Procedure. So how they're notifying the owners, how they're notifying anybody in proximity to this, completely has changed now. That's not good. Not good at all. But yeah, I don't know. Not enough people are listening. Not enough people are paying attention. And next thing you know, we're going to end up like they did down in Mississippi, where a town that wasn't supposed to be affected all of a sudden had a pipeline break and a carbon break. 200 people needed to be evacuated, 45 injured, and 3 were killed.
And where was that at?
Saratasha's, I can't pronounce it, but all you need to do is search carbon break Mississippi and it'll pull straight up.
So, what does this do to our oil field over time? I've heard different stories. What is the science? Do you know what the science says about it? I mean, is it gonna make it to where we aren't gonna have an oil field, or?
Well, that's the stupid thing about this entire thing. I'm sorry for the lack of a better term, but in other parts of the country, they're using carbon for fracking. But we're going to stop, 75 miles short of oil country and dump it in the ground there? They could have at least put it to use if they're going to do something with it, but they didn't. Because they don't get the tax credits if it's for anything other than storage. And honestly speaking, the people that this pipeline's crossing should be getting those tax credits, not some company.
Right.
The
Same people that probably voted for John Hoeven.
Yeah, well,
the irony.
The thing is like these individuals with this pipeline near them, they're the ones taking all the risk, not the company shoving it through at the end of the line.
Yeah.
So, and I'm sorry, I'm kind of ranty about it.
Well, it's like we visited before we went on air. My concern is, especially with these foreign countries investing, what that does with the ownership. Because again, it's basically like what we were fighting out there with Fufang. Still, is you control the land, you control the water, you control people, right?
Yep.
And that's where I'm fearful, especially, and yeah, the pipeline could break. I'm not downplaying that part either, but big picture, I'm very concerned about the land rights, the property rights of owners. I know that there's quite a few court cases right now that they're fighting, or different landowners are. So that's where my concern lies in all of this. I mean, we were even talking about the data center out here in Williston, what that's doing. The noise by itself, I mean, yeah, you drive up to that thing and it's loud. I feel my heart goes out to the people right across the road that have places there. But there again, we were talking how it's right next to an electrical transformer, a transfer station and stuff. So my question would be is if we do have problems with our power grid, who's going to suffer? Is it going to be the people, or is it going to be that data center?
It's going to be the people.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the Bitcoin farm that they have out in Jamestown. They put in a gigantic power station out there too. And I mean, it gets hot enough this summer. This just went up this last year. It gets hot enough this summer. I bet you the city of Jamestown is going to be seeing blackouts. Well, that thing keeps right on running because that's going to take the main draw off the energy.
Yep. It's kind of like the Fufang deal. The plant itself was going to use more water than the city of Grand Forks itself. Now just think about that a minute. The corn mill plant itself was going to use more gallons per day water of Grand Forks, which is our second biggest city. How many people are in Grand Forks? Do we know?
I don't even know off the top of my head.
I don't know either, but it's quite a few. That's worrisome in my mind. Again, they're controlling the water. I mean, you can call me a conspiracy theorist all you want, but this is.
I mean, you're really not. There's 8 bills that targeted our water.
Yep.
I mean, they completely redistricted the northwest corner of the state. completely changed how that board sits.
Right.
Like, why are we dealing with the way stuff is going? Why are we redistricting? Why are we changing who has say over what?
Yeah.
They keep eliminating rural voices, and it's getting old.
Yep. Well, it's just like our county commission here in Williams County. So we have 5 commissioners, and I don't remember how it's all broken up, but 3 of the 5 represent Williston. We've got one out of Tioga, and I don't remember where the other one is, but he's either Grenora. I don't know for sure, but he represents another area where there's a small town. So we have Williston, but then we have Grenora, we have Ray, Tioga, the one right out of Springbrook, and Epping. I think are the towns in our all of them. I might have missed 1 or 2, but I don't think so. So out of 5 commissioners, 3 of them represent Williston or live in Williston somewhere. It used to not be that way. There only used to be 2. So.
Well, and that's stuff that desperately needs to be addressed too.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, you look at our legislator. What 19 districts are represented between Grand Forks, Bismarck, and Fargo?
Mm-hmm.
That's a third of the vote.
Yeah.
Like, that's scary.
Very much so.
Honestly speaking, we'll talk about that a different day.
Well, we could go into it if you want, man.
Oh, I know we could go into it, but I never reveal all the cards, right?
That's right.
So,
Well, one thing I do,
but it's ridiculous because you look at the school boards, you look at the city commission meetings, you look at the county commission meetings, you look at our legislature. It's anyone along the way could have stopped this. I mean, counties could have said, no, we're not going to allow this to come through. Townships could have struck it down and said, no, we're not going to allow it to go through. But if people don't care, they're not going to raise the stink about it. They're just going to be quiet. But the Legislative Assembly had ample opportunity to stop this thing in its tracks, too. You know, you heard so many campaign promises last summer about legislators that were going to stop this. And it's not stopped.
Yeah. It's only pushed forward if you think about it.
Yeah.
They didn't help it at all.
No, and I mean, you look at how many ran on the promise of getting rid of property tax. There's a dozen different ways that we could fund our entire state's budget that would not require property tax, whether it's county or city or state.
Yeah.
But, you know, we saved a bunch of money by putting in that flat tax rate that really doesn't affect anybody until you get rich. You know, that was a very healthy chunk if you make over $400,000+ a year.
Yeah. By the way, who's the ones that are getting rich? Oh, that's right. The ones that are making the loss.
Right?
Oh, jeez.
Jesus, next session they better put something on the books to stop them from leasing land to themselves or giving themselves contracts or anything else, because it's ridiculous.
Yeah. You know, Marvin, it's the more that I get in this, the more frustrating sometimes it is because especially like with me, I've been working on my relationship with God too, you know, and I've come born again last September and just kind of working through stuff that way and reading the Bible a lot and different things. Now, and I'm going to open up a can of worms, I suppose, when I say this, but since when is doing the right thing wrong and doing the wrong thing right? I don't get it anymore. the government and our Bible is supposed to go hand in hand, right? That's where our government came from, is the Bible, right?
Yep.
But yet the Bible is offensive. We can't have it in school. We can't have it in City Hall. We can't have it at the courthouse. It's offensive. Since when? You know what you what I feel is offensive, and we'll just go down this road a little bit. What I feel offensive is the fact that all this unnatural living and that we do, that's not right, where boys want to be girls and girls want to be boys, and I mean that's unnatural.
Well,
That and you don't have to touch on this if you don't want to, but what my
and
point
go ahead.
is as I'm getting is to these school boards too. I just Man, a year and a half ago when Joe and I ran for school board, we were told that none of this was going to happen in Ray. I mean, we got an 8th grade teacher who just a history teacher who decided to show graphic abortion videos because she didn't like the essays that she got back about our country. Um, we've got teachers that like to tout around these um, books that are shouldn't belong in classrooms, pornographic books, and just books that are not appropriate. And we've got that right here in a little town, 850 people where I live. I was told a year and a half ago when I ran for school board that none of this was going to happen. I tell you what, I'll give you the presidency of the country. I want every school board, every county commission in the country, because that's how a lot of this has gotten changed. They've brainwashed our kids. None of these local governments, which are more powerful than the federal. I mean, a lot of people don't even know that. They don't even know that the sheriff is the most powerful person in the county. The sheriffs themselves don't even know that. So you can have the presidency. You can have hell. You can even have Congress. I'll take all the school boards. I'll take the county commissions, and I'll take the city um, commissions.
Yep.
That's how they did it.
I mean, your township's your most powerful form of government in the country.
Yep. Give me all of them. You can have Congress and the whole mess out in Washington, because that's how they did it. And it started right in our schools. You go to a school board meeting and you tell them that the parents are supposed to be the the teachers, the ones who decide for their children on what they're supposed to learn and how to learn it, and they look at you like you're a knucklehead. I can't tell you how many superintendents I've had tell me that it's not our right to say that.
Well, you look at my own daughter. I mean, 2nd grade, I got a note sent home saying that she was getting put into a special education class. I didn't even know anything was going on. This was the first I got notified about it. So I went in to find out what was going on. She was having issues with reading.
Yep.
Well, she's dyslexic like her dad, which is why I always have to pull stuff up. And I made that school give me a month to work with her. And Sarah and I, there was a lot of tears and there was a lot of frustration from everybody involved.
Mm-hmm.
There was. But after a month of working with my kid, we did the retest, because the deal was if she passed the retest, she didn't need to go into these classes.
Yeah.
And not only did she pass it, but she was rating that she was in 2nd grade at that point. She was reading at a 4th grade level.
Well,
People swore up and down that I got her tutors, and it's like, no, we just sat down around the table and we worked on it. But you look at Max, North Dakota. I'm going to put this out there because I got a very upset parent that emailed me about this. They just lost a really good teacher, and they lost one of their paras for special education kids. And they were told that the para was let go because the ESSER funds had ran out. Well, I went and looked. In April, they had outstanding available balance of over $200,000.
So
why are
before
we getting rid of the kids that are for special education? Sorry.
no problem. I was just gonna say, why don't you tell everybody what ESSER funds are, because some people might not know.
ESSER funds were the grants that we got through all the COVID money. You can go to the DPI website and you can look up, there's ESSER 1, 2, and 3 for different grants that were sent out. The schools needed to apply for them. But there's also guidelines as to how these funds were supposed to be used. And there is a very interesting tracking system that's there. So I can't remember how much the money from COVID was earmarked for ESSER. And the first one was just for getting these schools up for social distancing and getting the masks and the desks set up right and doing what they needed to do. But the second two runs were literally surplus funds that were allocated to each of these schools. And we're not talking like kind of sort of funds. We're talking, upwards of millions of dollars funds. And they have, I think, until 2025 to get them used up. But the situation with Max, when I looked them up, their first round was like 51,000, which, I mean, that's nothing crazy. Their second round was 258,000, give or take a couple thousand. And then ESSER 3s was 459,000 or 58,000. But then there's ESSER 3 reallocation, which I'm not quite sure what that is, but that was 459,000. So Max 50 received anywhere between 750,000 and $1.1 million in ESSER funds. And part of that, they're a Title I school. Part of that money is earmarked to go for teachers and para for special education.
Well,
imagine what Ray could do with $1.1 million in extra funds that they didn't know they had.
They probably build another gymnasium like they did the first time, or redo the school. But that's probably what they would do. I mean, but
if you look at Williston, how many teachers are quitting up there? There's
quite a few, and we still have positions in Ray. I think there's still like 2 or 3 teacher positions that are still open, and they need bus drivers. But I'll say that out loud too. If they get rid of the guy that's running it, they'd probably get some people to apply, but nobody wants to work for him or his daughter that's running the busing system, because the last superintendent here hired someone to run all of it because I guess he couldn't do that like they usually did. But that's another story for another time.
Yeah.
So I'm just so we decided to homeschool our kids, and they started a couple weeks ago, actually last week. And it's been eye-opening. Let's just say that. My son had an IEP, and it wasn't educational by any means. It was more for his cerebral palsy and autism. But we found out a few things. He is behind, and we will get him caught up again. But they, if there was any kind of struggle comprehending or anything like that, he was. And I'm just wondering how many of those kids get sent to the resource room to do whatever. He flat told us he wasn't made to write cursive. He wasn't made to look up his answers like the other kids. He just, they sent him to the resource room. And I just, and I'll be honest with you, we kept tight tabs on what was going on. I mean, there was a year that we pulled him out because we had issues with a teacher. He had braces on at that time, and in gym he wasn't supposed to wear his braces, and that was even wrote in his IEP that he needed to remove his braces for gym class. And she flat told him that you just need to try harder because he had his braces on, because they were doing their stretching and that, and he was getting frustrated because he couldn't do the stretching because he had his braces on, which that's why he has them on, right? And that's why he's supposed to take them off. Well, instead of letting him take them off and all of that, she told him that he needed to try harder. Now, can you imagine telling an IEP kid who has autism and has a slight case of cerebral palsy? Can you imagine telling a kid that like that? And at that time, he was what, 6, 7? Yeah, it was 2 years ago, 7. Can you imagine telling a kid that already has to, work through that adversity alone? Now, we've raised him not to take the victim standpoint, or however you want to say that, but never would I tell him to try harder when I know dang good and well that he's supposed to take those braces off.
Yeah.
So we ended up, long story short, we ended up pulling him up that year, and it just so happened to be the year of COVID. So, but it's just, I would encourage everybody to really get involved in your child's education, because there's more going on that meets the eye.
Well, yeah, we're homeschooling our daughter too, our youngest one. Like, we haven't even entered her into the system. We weren't planning on her entering her into the school system. For homeschool, though, we're
have to at age 7. We have to file our letter.
Yeah, we have to file our letter of intent, but she's not going to set foot inside a public school.
Yeah.
And we decided that when she was born. That wasn't something that was decided, a year or two ago. And that's just because what we dealt with my oldest daughter. Yes, baby.
I love you.
I love you too.
I tell you, Marvin, it's not just the educational side though. The psychological stuff that they go through. I mean, they got parents out there that yell at these kids. And I'm not saying that they shouldn't get after them. If you got a butt chewing, yeah. But I'll tell you this: my daughter, there was many nights she came home crying because she didn't want to go back, and since and I always wanted our kids homeschooled, and we just said enough is enough. After I got involved in politics the way that I have, and stuff, and educating myself, and my wife has been close behind. She's not on the scene, so to speak, like I am, but she does a lot of the research and stuff too, and it's caused a lot of psychological damage to these kids. And one thing, she was reading the other day, a paper from the homeschool community that she has, and I kind of found it funny. One of the things, it was talking about reasons why to homeschool your kids, and one of those reasons is basically to be shoot, to someone that they look up to, like they want to be like you, be a good, what's the word I'm looking for here?
You want to be a good role model for them.
There you go. A good role model. If you want your kids to act good and be productive, then you need to be that good role model. They need to be around, um, adults, right?
You just got to be present.
Right.
Right now, the biggest thing that I hear from teachers is a lot of them feel like the parents aren't present.
Yeah.
I mean, it's both sides of the street, and
Yep.
not to make an excuse for the education system, but
You are right.
I mean, these parents just drop their kids off, go to work, they come home, they sit on their phone. I mean, there's nights I'm guilty of sitting on my phone when I should be on the floor playing.
Right.
Like,
It's called the drop-off generation for a reason.
yeah.
And because that's
But-
exactly what happens.
But at the same point, with the way our youngest daughter is, like, she's going to learn different. Like,
Right.
and she's not the kid that you stick in a classroom and expect to learn something. I mean, this kid goes from 8 a.m. to 11 p.m., just constant go, go, go. So in order for you to get a child like that to sit down, the public school system is put them on medication. Tell me I'm wrong.
No, you're not.
But the homeschool side of it, I mean, if she's outside and we're working on stuff, like I've been having her help me build. She counts the board. She's been learning how to do that stuff. She's been helping me figure out the math of how many we need,
Yep.
Like, it's still math. It's still learning, but it's learning in a way that works for her.
Yep.
And that's the frustrating part, is so much anymore is a one-size-fits-all education system, and if you don't meet all the little check marks, then you don't count.
The problem is, though, in other countries, they gear it towards the top of the class, right?
Mm-hmm.
Here in the States, they gear it towards the bottom of the class.
Well, and I mean,
Go ahead.
North Dakota used to be one of the best in the country when it came to education systems. It did.
Yeah.
Like, when I graduated high school, applying for jobs out of state, because I did go to college out of state for a while, they're like, my interview stopped when I said I was from North Dakota, because I had the job at that point, because they knew I brought the work ethic.
Yeah.
They knew I brought the education part of it with. And granted, I got dogged when I ran for office because, I never finished college. Well, I'm 45. I still don't know what I want to go to school for. I pursued art, I pursued advertising, I pursued accounting, I pursued literature.
Yeah.
But if you're not constantly learning, even as an adult, I mean, where does your progress start?
Yeah.
And just learning and sitting and working on stuff where your children can see that, I mean, that will inspire them to learn too.
Yep.
Because only thing any parent should ever hope for is that their child succeeds further in life than they ever did.
Yeah. I tell R2 that every night, they can do anything they put their minds to. And yeah, I truly believe that. And I don't know what the good Lord's got in store for them. All that we're trying to do is guide them down the correct road and see what happens from there. But I know since school has ended and we started homeschooling last week, actually, and it's totally different. It's like we got our kids back again. They're smiling, they're happy, they're asking questions. There's no more frustration, and so
well,
I'm glad we made that decision.
and the big flaw, I'm sorry, in North Dakota's education system is teacher pay versus administrative pay. There's no reason that we should be scratching checks for 6 figures for administrators while our teachers are struggling to make ends meet.
I agree.
If your teacher doesn't have the heart, they're not going to put in the work.
However, there are some very correct teachers.
The other flip side of that too, though, is yes, you're onto something there. I agree with that, but we've got too many unions, like the teacher union here, that is
Yep.
bought out by the special interest groups. I mean, we've got hell, even the even the textbooks are written by the special interest groups.
Yep.
That's what I'm saying is you can have the presidency and Congress and all that bull jive out there. Give me the school boards, the county commissions, the city commissions, the townships, and we'll get her turned around.
Don't forget the sheriff.
And the sheriff. Oh yeah. So
I mean, it used to be the world ended at the border of North Dakota.
yeah.
You know, everybody from out of state thought that we still rode covered wagons, could hunt buffalo, and didn't know what a car. I kind of wish it would go back to that. I hate being on the national radar. Like, let's go back to being the very top of the Bible Belt, being God's country, and raising kids that are smart, intelligent, are taught that they can do anything that they want to if they put their mind to it. Like, it's not that hard of a concept to grasp.
Not
a long way from pipelines, haven't we?
Yeah, we have, and I kind of figured this was going to happen, but this is something that's been kind of on my mind for a while too. Is, you know, as I walk around, we were having a discussion at work today, and it was, you know, because I got back into the oil field a few months ago, and so, you know, you kind of, after a while, you forget what you miss when you work from home and you don't go very many places. But I made the comment of, it seems like the more colors in their hair, the dumber that they are. And again, I mean, yeah, it's probably rude to say, but I just, in the last few months going around Williston, I just can't believe what this generation has turned into. And again, since when has doing the right thing wrong and doing the wrong thing right?
Well, you go back to the 90s for that.
Yeah.
I blame the guy that dumped the coffee cup in his lap at McDonald's and won all sorts of money for where we are now.
Yeah.
That was the canon event for the U.S.
But there again, Marv, that's how we are. This is where we're at because of that, because it all comes from school or society or parents not being, you know, and I'm not trying just to blame the school, because the parents are just as, I mean,
it's complacency is what it is.
Right. Then if you're not going to pay attention to what's going on, this is what's going to happen. They took over our school systems. You know, even with all this money since COVID, I find it hilarious. You know, I was at a safety meeting a couple of months ago, the WASA. It's the Williston Safety Areas. It's basically, they do a safety meeting every month. And they had a lady, a psychologist, speaking there. And she said that the reason that it's hard to find workers now is because they have found out that they can make just as much from working at home. And there was an older gentleman there, and of course he kind of got a little wound up about it. And he's like, well, that might be true, but I guarantee you, if you take the subsidies away from them and they have to live on what they make just from working their job from home, they aren't going to make it. And
Yeah.
she didn't quite know what to say about that, but it's the truth. I mean, how
Well,
many?
I
Go
mean,
ahead.
you look at Sarah's job; she works from home, yes, but you know, it's a local company, which is nice. But the median wage, I mean, if she didn't want to work from home, she could probably make the same amount going to the local grocery store, but she loves her job. I
Yeah,
mean, really pay that much more. All you're saving on is the cost of commuting.
right.
Don't have to put clothes on.
Yeah, and she doesn't have to put clothes on.
Yeah.
Not that she's around like that. Jammies all day long.
Yeah.
The inspiration from working from home was um, she can still do stay-at-home mom. She's got the mornings
Yep.
with her. She's got like there's a lot of advantages to it versus going to an office.
Right.
But
Well, and don't get me wrong. Not all of them that work from home are
yeah.
like that, but there's a good majority of them
Oh, absolutely,
that were,
absolutely.
yeah.
But
So,
where it really begs the question though is if it's okay for everybody to work from home now, do we really need all these high towers, big cities, office buildings to be put up? Because how many of them are sitting vacant right now because everybody's working from home?
and how many of them have Chinese people in them in Fargo?
I don't know. We don't talk about Fargo.
No, yeah, fair enough.
but you know what I mean though. Like
Yeah, no, I get you.
the
We got them.
benefit of COVID. The benefit of COVID. We have less 24-hour stores now. We have more people that have the ability to work from home than ever before, which means that technically, if they choose, we have a better opportunity for them to be present in their children's lives.
Yeah,
That's about the only thing I see as a benefit from COVID.
fair enough.
You know, because now you don't, I mean, even look at the Black Fridays the last couple of years.
Yeah,
It wasn't Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Like these stores are shutting down so their employees can go home and be with their families.
yeah,
You don't have 24-hour Walmart anymore. And they say it's because there's a worker shortage, but it was pretty hard to find somebody in Walmart to begin with,
right.
you know? But
Well, they should be almost done. They should be having the robots come here pretty soon. I mean, they got rid of all their checkouts, so
oh God, I mean, if you've been to Sam's Club recently, they got that thing that rolls around and does inventory and cleans the floor and everything else.
no, I haven't been to Sam's Club in a while. So the
Yeah,
last,
it's kind of creepy. It like follows you around the store. I'm pretty sure it's their security guard too.
I think the last time I was at Sam's Club was during COVID, and I had 2 carts full of stuff, and people were giving me the stink eye, and I'm like, we run a daycare up in northwestern North Dakota. We only come once a month. Leave me alone.
Right.
So, yeah, that
But
was
I mean, the school boards, the city commissions, this pipeline, it comes back to exactly what you're talking about. We've become complacent because, you know, we thought we were electing good people to represent us. And then we quit caring about elections. I mean, you look at voter turnouts. I mean, low after low after low.
yeah.
And now this year, I mean, people should be getting ready for the 2024 election because it's going to be a wild year. You know,
Mm-hmm.
if the press conference is true about what's going to be happening on the 7th, I mean, we're going to be looking at our first new governor in 8 years. If he follows through with it. And just the amount of people that are rumored to be running for it's ridiculous. And people need to be paying attention now.
Speaking of paying attention, don't we have another vote in the North Dakota GOP coming up here soon?
Yeah, party chair. Well, the entire board, I believe.
Yeah. Do we know who's running against Perry Schaefer?
We know Sandy.
She is.
Well, according to Rob Port, if you listen to that. I'd like to see somebody else. I'd like to see somebody else run too. Like, not saying that Sandy's not a good candidate, but I'd like to see a three-way race because it'd be interesting. But like national committee man, national committee woman, like there hasn't been anything that's come out there. I've heard rumors of other people that are going to be running for it, but again, I can't confirm anything, so it's tough to sit and talk about because you know how I am.
Right.
But like with the Port article, it sounds like we have at least Perry and we have Sandy Sanford. I've caught rumblings of a couple other people, but we'll see. So I'm
I haven't heard.
Paying attention to that too.
I haven't heard. It's been pretty tight-lipped, which I don't understand. I would think that if you're going to be running, that you would want to get going and talk to people. But
well, and you know,
there again, I don't have anything to hide.
Maybe they're just talking to their district boards because they don't think the rest of us need to know.
True enough.
Because the district boards are who votes for them. So
votes for them, yeah. I understand that, but yeah. Okay, I get you.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, half the state's cloak and dagger anymore.
Shoot. Yeah, well, I know we kind of got off topic and we talked about it before we went on air, but it was something that I felt that we needed to talk about because it's been bothering me and you know, especially what we've seen just in our own two kids since we've started and I've thought a lot about it. I just I'm very troubled by what I see in today's youth, and honestly, I feel sorry for them because they don't have the direction. They don't have you know, God in their life, and I feel sorry for them. I really do.
Yeah.
I think, you know, us as a society, we better repent and ask for forgiveness right quick, and because it's coming.
Yeah, absolutely.
It is coming. So.
Oh, well, Shiloh, I think it's been a good evening tonight.
It's been a good one. We'll have to do it again. I appreciate your time and
yeah, not a problem. Like this pipelines in schools, man, it's more hand in hand than people realize.
Right. No, I encourage everybody to get out and get to these meetings. I know they've had a couple at the Capitol and stuff, and start paying attention to what's going on, people. Especially like we're saying with your local government. This is how we're going to take our state back if we're going to do it. If the grassroots is going to win, we need to do it with our local governments.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can't say it enough. So, but all right, Marv, thanks for your time, and we'll be talking with you again.
Yeah, sounds great. Talk to you
All
later.
right. Yep. That was Marvin Lepp down there in Bismarck. He's one of the regulars on the show here. I thank him for his time, and so I'll just leave you guys with this. You know, like I said earlier, I'll take the school boards, the county commissions, city commissions, these local governments. We got to get our country back on track, and that's how we can do it. Forget about what's going on in Washington, because that ain't going to save us. What's going to save us is our local governments and starting to do right by our kids and do right by ourselves. So with that, I will leave you guys. You guys have a good evening, and we'll see you next week. Enjoy the weather out there.